Hey, good morning. I hope you've had a great weekend and having the start of a beautiful Monday. Today I want to talk about an issue that many of us struggle with, myself included, over the years, but may not even be aware of what's going on, what's causing the upsets to come up in our life. And that is the challenges of self-sabotage. Let me give you a couple of examples. Bill had hoped to have a woman come into his life that was exactly like Kathy. She was smart, she was articulate, she had a huge heart. They shared so many things in common. And he found himself just frequently offering up prayers of gratitude that he had found her and had been blessed by her presence in his life. And he often felt humbled by how extraordinary she was and how grateful. But then as time went on, he started noticing little quirks in her. Very insignificant things, and there was a part of him that said, this isn't even worth any kind of attention to. Yet he found himself more and more annoyed by her idiosyncrasies. I apologize for the dogs in the background. My neighbors have dogs, and falls under the category of that which we have no control over. So, but back to Bill. Bill started noticing more and more his annoyance and greater and greater annoyance with these little insignificant things that were occurring. And at first he tried to ignore it, and then he commented about it, which led to more and more complaining. And then it became intermittent with him making fun of her about it. And he started noticing that it was pulling them apart, and they were getting further and further away from each other and less intimate with each other. And she kept asking him, why do you bring up these little things? Are you trying to hurt me? Why do you make such a big deal about them? And he honestly couldn't answer her. He didn't know. Until finally she had had enough, and she broke up with him, and which left him devastated. He was furious with himself. He couldn't believe that he had been such a jerk and such a childish, just jerk is the word that he kept telling himself over and over again. Why would he push away the woman of his dreams? Second example is a gal, and I'm going to call her Jenny. And Jenny worked really hard in school. She was a top A student and did really well in school, She graduated with honors. She went on into graduate school and again did extraordinarily well. Was hired by a top agency, and she loved her supervisor. She loved the company. She loved the team of coworkers that she worked with, and she thrived. And in a relatively short period of time, she had 3 raises and 2 promotions. And then Jenny started behaving in ways that she had never, ever acted before. She started being chronically late to work. She started missing days. She started just like wandering around talking to her coworkers instead of getting her work done. And her supervisor had several talks with her, finally gave her an official warning, which was followed later by a written warning. And finally, they called her in and said, this just isn't working out, and you have a choice. You can either resign, or else we're going to have to fire you. And so within 3 months of her recent promotion, she was allowed to resign. And for several days, going into weeks, she stayed around in her home feeling extraordinarily depressed and confused. She loved that new job. She felt somewhat intimidated by it, but she had always risen to the challenge, and she couldn't understand why she had acted like a slacker. Her words, slacker. And both of these came to me with great distress and great frustration and total confusion. Why am I acting like this? And the answer is self-sabotage. I want you to imagine a modern building. It could be a home, office building, or whatever, and it has central air. And within this central air system, if ever the temperature gets too low, a switch is flipped and corrective action is taken, and it raises the temperature. Other times of the year, if the temperature gets too high, a different switch is flipped and corrective action is brought to bring things down to a comfortable level. And within each of us, we have a form of this corrective ability. And it can be very helpful. For example, you have been kind of slacking off on going to the gym or working out or walking or what have you. And you kind of reach this low point and a switch is flipped internally and you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, as we say, and you get going again. That corrective action has taken place and you're pulled yourself up and you're back into an area where you feel comfortable with yourself. That's great. And we all recognize that. People in the 12-step community often talk about hitting rock bottom. And when you hit rock bottom, you have to gather, you have to find the strength within, and you have to pull yourself up and get yourself back into the comfort level where you forget about yourself. The other side of that is we can have false ceilings, false limits of of what we're able to attain, what we are worthy of. Worthiness is huge when it comes to self-sabotage. And so, like with our two examples, trying to remember Bill. Bill hit that ceiling when he met the woman of his dreams. She was wonderful for him, but there was a part of him that didn't feel worthy. And it caused some anxiety and it caused some discomfort. And so, without even realizing it, a switch had been flipped into his mind, into his being, and he had taken corrective action to get himself back into a comfortable place, which meant his wonderful companion was out of his life because he subconsciously felt unworthy of her and he didn't know how to deal with it. Similarly, Jenny got this incredible promotion. She loved her job. She loved the company. Everything was great. And yet, she felt overwhelmed, not by the work, but by what it meant to her to have that job, to have that position. And not knowing how to deal with it, that switch was flipped within her being, and she self-sabotaged herself and lost her job. So the question is, how do we overcome that false ceiling? And the key is there are some specific things that we can do to raise that ceiling. And if we keep doing our work, what used to be our false ceiling will become our grounded floor. So what used to feel like uncomfortable will become our new set point so that we don't go any lower than that. And it's through how we talk to ourselves, how we see ourselves, and there's a number of tools that we can learn that I can work with you on to help you learn how to stop sabotaging yourself. I hope you will reach out. If you're struggling with this, send me a message. Let's get changing this. It will drastically change your life. I can speak for myself. I have experienced this. It's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this, is because I know that feeling of total, what am I doing? Or what have I done? I know that feeling. So reach out to me. Let's get started and let's start making some significant changes in your life. I wish you well and I bless you. Namaste.